and it's so lovely to be here. I hope you can all hear me at the back and online. I have to be honest, this has been one of the most confronting speeches that I've ever written, and I've rewritten it almost 5 times, and each version sort of masked the truth with hopeful sentiments and polished achievements. And it's because I've been invited here as a symbol of resilience, experience, and optimism for change. But the truth is, my hope flowers in the soil of suffering. You see, last week, 5 years after my mum died, my therapist looked at me and said, "Joe, we've finally reached the core of your grief." It took me 5 years to say out loud, "I miss my mum, and all I want to be is loved by her again." And I'd like to tell you about her and about us. My mum, Susan Cavalli, was a Welsh-Italian school teacher. She loved the arts, music, theatre, hearty Italian food, and even better wine. She wore vivid, elaborate outfits from jewels, multicoloured scarves adorning her neck. We danced to Moulin Rouge in the kitchen, baked Victoria sponges, and visited beautiful gardens together. She was my best friend and the staunchest champion of my musical endeavours. In 2010, when I was 13, we were on holiday in Italy when she became unwell. Sunstroke, they said. I remember coming back from dinner, opening the door and finding her naked on the bed, clutching her head, unable to open her eyes. It was a brain tumour, misdiagnosed for years as depression. In 2019, she was admitted to a local hospice in South Wales for end-of-life care after a decade of illness. And I felt totally helpless. For 2 months, I sat by her bedside. Mum was non-verbal and I couldn't communicate with the person I loved the most. And when I looked at her and the other patients, the hospice care wasn't representative of their individual vibrancy. They were bored and they wanted to die. One day on a solitary walk around the hospice, I found a honky-tonk piano tucked away, covered in blankets. I wheeled it to Mum's bedside, and I'm not very strong, lifted the lid, sat down and began to play. The tune of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, the piece that opened the conference, filled the hospice. When I played those first notes, I felt it. Shoulders relaxing, emotion releasing, breath steadying, and for the first time in months felt like I could fully connect with my mum, despite no words being spoken. Music became the unquenchable expression of the human soul. And in that moment, a ripple of connection spread across the hospice, a moment that continued to resonate long after Mum died. In my small community in South Wales, I kept hearing the story of the boy who played the piano for his mum. Families sleeping soundly, final connections, a glimmer of a smile, laughter, stress melting from patients and staff alike. That one moment didn't just transform my perception of end-of-life care, it transformed the perception of countless others. You see, when we talk about total pain, we still often focus only on the patient. But total pain is the human fallout of illness for patients, families, carers, and staff alike. When that tumour took her memory, her balance, her ability to speak, eat, and breathe, I didn't think my mum's suffering from a tumour. I thought, my mum is suffering and I am suffering. What can I do as her son to help? The suffering I experienced through Mum's final months was profound. Her death wasn't the end of my pain. It continues 15 years since her first diagnosis because the system couldn't support me. Because we keep forgetting a largely Eastern and spiritual tradition that the closer we move towards death, the more we return to the fundamentals of human life: nature, soul, spirit, and connection. So how does a simple tune like Somewhere Over the Rainbow transform our understanding of suffering? Well, I founded music in hospices to bring the joy of the creative arts to palliative care, to find out how we could rewrite the narrative. In our six-month pilot scheme, the results were astonishing. We reached over 70 patients and 100 family members. We had incredible medical results, including temporary recoveries from comas and movement from actively dying pathways to end of life. So I was seeing a patient diagnosed as being in their final hours The only intervention that changed was the music, and 3 weeks later they were sat upright in bed having a conversation with me. Not only that, but children came up to me and said, "The hospice is such a fun place, when can we come back?" And families, regardless of if they were English speaking or not, thanked us because they said that music was a gift from God. Faith, community, youth, connection. And that's because our 3 pillars empower not just the patient, but the whole community. We reimagine the role of the arts through live performance and inclusive creative programming. Music becomes a bridge, inviting marginalised communities into hospices to share their music and begin dialogue on breaking barriers to hospice care. We deliver impactful grief education through our children's book, Little Elephant Visits the Hospice. This year, 200 copies are going to 50 schools through Thames Hospice. And then through coffee chats, I speak with inspiring figures from across the palliative care sector, sharing human stories. Because talking about palliative care should be as easy as grabbing a coffee. These 3 pillars mobilise society into socio-civic engagement with the palliative care sector. And why is that? Because community is built on culture, and culture is built on the creative arts. The truth is, many national charities and hospices have been forced into reactivity. And how can they be anything else when we're trying to find solutions inside a broken system, one squeezed by funding cuts and false flag announcements offering temporary relief? But while policy is debated and funding is fought for, we can do something different. We can begin with the structures we already have and use them to build something better. A new version of palliative care rooted in community, diversity, education and culture. Whether in communities with the most advanced palliative care systems or those just starting, there is one common denominator: culture. The most recent Lancet Commission on the Value of Death imagined a palliative care utopia, rooted in civic engagement, but for me this isn't a utopia, it's a reality, and I see it in every music session we deliver. Sometimes I ask myself, why me? Why does a 27-year-old musician, still recovering from a decade of trauma, now find himself speaking in rooms alongside people from the World Health Organization and Marie Curie? And it's because I'm still living with total pain. And here are some truths about that I don't often share. My mum's death left me with PTSD, anxiety and depression. I'm still reduced to tears every time I visit my family home and see memories of her illness. The desire by my family to save me from suffering led to greater pain because no one ever explained the words terminal, palliative, hospice, and death. Grief and total pain have derailed my career. I no longer hold my dreams to perform on West End stages because it feels so insignificant. And some days feel unbearably lonely, building a charity on the loss of a mother's love. And I feel bitter anger towards those who take love and life for granted and who have never had to rebuild their life after grief. But I feel hopeful for my future and the future of palliative care because from my pain, a community is formed, a community of thinkers and change makers, people who see life's fragility and work to honour it. I know now that my experiences are a gift because I'm harnessing the power of suffering to help build something better. Because I exist in the margin, straddling the worlds of social impact, the arts, and healthcare. And within the margins are beautiful people with a lived experience, wisdom, and imagination to answer the questions this sector keeps asking. We just need to listen, and we just need to embrace them. If there is to be a future movement of wellness, equity, and connection between hospices and society, it will have creatives and community at its heart. And I invite you to be part of that journey in the act of service to the families who need us most, just like Mum and me. There is a mother in all of us, and that mother has the power to transform the world and transform palliative care. Thanks.